You notice it in a second that shouldn't matter. A tiny pause before someone answers. A look that doesn't match their words. A reaction that feels slightly off. It's nothing serious, but it stays with you. And then it happens again. Different moment, different person, same feeling. Now it's harder to ignore, because it's no longer random. Something underneath the surface is starting to show itself, and once you catch it, everything begins to shift. You start hearing what isn't being said. You start seeing what isn't being shown. You start understanding what isn't being explained. That's where the real change begins. Because this isn't about gaining knowledge. It's about losing the ability to stay unaware. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this in its rawest form. The more accurately you see people, the less you can move through them the same way. Not without pretending, not without lowering what you've already understood. And once that happens, something breaks. Not your environment, your connection to it. This video is about that shift. The moment perception sharpens, the distance it creates, and why the path that follows isn't chosen, it's forced by what you now see. Number 1, the awakening shock. Why seeing the truth feels like losing everything. There's a moment most people never reach, and the ones who do wish they hadn't. It doesn't feel like growth. It doesn't feel like clarity. It feels like something inside you just broke, quietly, permanently. You start noticing things you used to ignore. The way people talk without meaning what they say. The way situations are shaped by hidden intentions. The way emotions are used, not felt. None of this is new. It was always there. You just couldn't see it before. And now you can't unsee it. That's where the shock hits. Because what you thought was real starts losing structure. Conversations feel hollow. Reactions feel rehearsed. Even connections that once felt genuine begin to look calculated. You don't suddenly become smarter. You become aware. And awareness is heavy. Machiavelli wrote about this kind of clarity in a different form. The ability to see people as they are, not as they present themselves. But he never framed what it feels like when that vision turns on you for the first time. Because it doesn't empower you immediately. It isolates you. You begin to realize that most interactions operate on layers people don't question. Social rules, emotional expectations, unspoken agreements. All of it starts looking like a system instead of something natural. That realization disconnects you. Not physically, internally. You can still sit in the same room, talk to the same people, follow the same routines. But something is off. You're no longer experiencing things the way you used to. And that creates a split. Part of you wants to go back, to not noticing, to not analyzing, to just existing inside the illusion like everyone else. The other part refuses, because once you've seen the structure, pretending becomes impossible. That's the moment where most people break or retreat. They distract themselves, drown the awareness, or convince themselves they're overthinking. Anything to avoid carrying that weight. But if you don't escape it, something else happens. You start adapting. Slowly, you stop reacting to what's presented on the surface. You begin observing what's underneath. You stop taking things personally, because you can see the mechanisms behind behavior. That shift changes how you move. You speak less. You watch more. You trust slower. Not out of fear, but out of recognition. And that's where the transformation begins. Because the shock wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to remove the illusion that was shaping you. Everything you're feeling right now, the distance, the discomfort, the sense that something isn't the same anymore, that's not loss. That's separation. And once you stop trying to go back, you start moving forward differently. Number 2, the illusion collapse. When people no longer appear the same. It doesn't happen all at once. There's no single moment where everything falls apart. It's slower than that. More unsettling. One interaction feels off. Then another. Then something small you would have ignored before suddenly stands out. A reaction that doesn't match the words. A smile that feels timed instead of real. A compliment that sounds more strategic than genuine. At first, you brush it off. You tell yourself it's nothing. but it keeps happening. And eventually, you stop dismissing it. That's when the illusion begins to collapse. People don't change overnight. Your perception does. The same individuals you once trusted, admired, or felt comfortable around start appearing different, not because they became something new, but because you're no longer filtering what you see. You're noticing patterns, how someone adjusts their behavior depending on who's in the room, how their tone shifts when they want something, how their attention follows advantage, not connection. These details were always present. You just weren't looking for them. Now you can't ignore them. And that realization creates tension inside you, because it challenges everything you believed about people. You start questioning past interactions. Were they genuine, or just well presented? Were those moments real, or convenient? The more you think about it, the less stable your previous understanding feels. That instability is uncomfortable. It makes you feel disconnected from what used to feel certain. Niccolò Machiavelli understood that human behavior is guided more by self-interest than honesty. But reading that idea is very different from experiencing it in real time. When you actually see it, it changes how you relate to everyone. You stop assuming intentions. You stop trusting appearances. And most importantly, you stop reacting the same way. That shift creates distance. Not because you want to isolate yourself, but because your internal response is no longer aligned with the environment around you. Conversations that once felt engaging now feel predictable. Emotional displays that once pulled you in now feel calculated. You start holding back, not out of fear, but out of awareness. This is where most people struggle, because part of them wants to ignore what they're seeing. It was easier before, simpler, more comfortable, but comfort was built on incomplete perception. And now that perception is gone. You're left with something more accurate and more difficult. Here's the part that matters. This shift is not meant to make you cynical. It's meant to make you precise. Seeing through illusions doesn't mean you stop engaging with people. It means you engage with clarity instead of assumption. You recognize patterns without being controlled by them. You observe behavior without being emotionally pulled into it. That's the new position. You don't see people as good or bad anymore. You see them as they are. And that changes everything. Because once the illusion collapses, you stop responding to what people show and start understanding what they're actually doing. Drop a like and comment "I see through it" if this hit deeper. Number 3, the social disconnection. Why you stop fitting in without trying. At some point it becomes noticeable, not because anyone says it out loud, but because something feels off in places where you used to belong. The same conversations, the same environments, the same people, yet your presence inside them feels different. You're still there physically, but mentally something doesn't align the way it used to. You're not trying to stand out. You're not trying to isolate yourself. But you can't blend in the same way anymore. That's where the disconnection begins. It doesn't come from rejection. It comes from awareness. You start picking up on things that others ignore. The forced enthusiasm, the repeated patterns in conversation, the predictable reactions that follow certain topics. What once felt natural now feels structured, almost scripted. And once you notice that structure, participating in it starts to feel unnatural. You hesitate before speaking, not because you lack something to say, but because you can already see where the conversation is going. The outcome feels predictable before it even unfolds. That prediction kills engagement, because there's no curiosity left in something you already understand. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote about the importance of reading people and situations accurately, but he also implied something deeper. The more clearly you see, the harder it becomes to exist within illusions that others depend on. And most social environments are built on those illusions. Unspoken agreements to not question certain things. Emotional reactions that are expected rather than authentic. Group dynamics that rely on maintaining a shared perception, even if it's not fully real. When you step outside that perception, you stop fitting in without even trying. Not because you changed your personality, but because your internal reference point changed. You're no longer responding based on what feels socially aligned. You're responding based on what you actually observe. That difference is subtle, but powerful. It changes your timing, your tone, your level of engagement. And people feel that shift. Even if they can't explain it, they sense that you're not operating on the same frequency anymore. Conversations don't flow the same way. Interactions feel slightly strained, not hostile, just out of sync. This is where many try to adjust. They force themselves to reconnect, to act the way they used to match the energy around them. But it doesn't work, because it's not a surface-level change, it's internal. And once that internal shift happens, going back feels artificial. Here's the part most don't realize. This disconnection is not a flaw, it's a transition. You're moving away from environments that depend on unconscious participation. You're no longer reacting automatically, no longer following patterns without noticing them. That creates distance, but it also creates space. Space to choose where you engage, space to decide how you respond, space to operate on your own terms instead of adapting to every environment you enter. That's where control begins to form, not by fitting in better, but by no longer needing to fit in at all. Number 4. The loneliness paradox. Why clarity forces distance from others. It feels like loss, but nothing was actually taken. That's what makes it confusing. You're still surrounded by people. Conversations still happen. Life continues in the same structure from the outside. Yet internally something has shifted in a way that creates distance you can't ignore. Not distance you choose. Distance that forms on its own. The clearer your perception becomes, the harder it is to connect the same way you once did. Not because connection is impossible, but because it now requires something that rarely exists: alignment in awareness. Without that, everything starts to feel slightly out of place. You listen, but you're also analyzing. You respond, but you're aware of the underlying patterns. You engage, but part of you is observing the entire interaction from a distance. That dual awareness changes the experience. What once felt immersive now feels divided, and that division creates isolation. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the kind where you're present, but not fully inside the moment. Niccolò Machiavelli hinted at this cost indirectly. The more accurately you understand people, the less you are influenced by them. But the less you are influenced, the less you feel connected, because most connections are built on shared perception, not shared truth. When your perception changes, the connection weakens. That's the paradox. Clarity gives you control, but it also removes the comfort of unawareness. You start seeing intentions behind actions. You recognize patterns behind behavior. You understand motives without needing them to be explained. That level of understanding creates separation, because you can no longer respond blindly. And blind response is what keeps most social bonds intact. This is where the internal conflict begins. Part of you wants connection. The other part refuses to ignore what it now sees. Trying to balance both creates tension. You either lower your awareness to fit in, or you accept the distance that awareness creates. Most people choose the first option. They suppress what they see, just enough to stay connected. But if you don't do that, you face the second path, distance, and with it, loneliness. But here's what changes everything. This loneliness is not emptiness, it's space. Space that was previously filled with noise, assumptions, and unconscious reactions. Now that space is clear, and in that clarity, something new becomes possible. You begin to choose your connections instead of falling into them. You engage with intention instead of habit. You recognize who aligns with your perception and who doesn't, without forcing either outcome. That shift removes the need for constant connection, because you're no longer trying to feel understood by everyone. You're operating from understanding itself. And once that becomes your foundation, being alone stops feeling like a loss. It starts feeling like control. Number 5. The emotional detachment. Why you feel less but understand more. You don't notice the change the moment it begins. There's no clear line where emotion suddenly disappears. It fades in fragments. A situation that used to bother you doesn't land the same way. A reaction that once felt automatic now pauses before it happens. Moments that would have pulled you in emotionally start passing without the same intensity. At first it feels strange, almost like something is missing, because you were used to responding instantly, feeling deeply, getting pulled into the moment without thinking about it. Now there's distance, not complete numbness, but separation. And that separation changes everything. You begin to see situations instead of being absorbed by them. You notice how people react, how conversations shift, how outcomes are influenced, not from inside the emotion, but from outside it. That position gives you clarity you didn't have before. Niccolò Machiavelli understood that emotion clouds judgment, not because feeling is weak, but because it distorts perception. When you're inside emotion, you react to what it feels like, not what it actually is. Detachment removes that distortion. It allows you to observe without being controlled by what you observe. This is where the understanding deepens. You start recognizing patterns in behavior more quickly. You notice what triggers certain reactions in others. You understand why someone responds the way they do, without needing them to explain it. Because you're no longer reacting alongside them, you're watching. That shift increases your awareness, but it also creates a different kind of challenge. Because the more you understand, the less you feel involved. Situations that once felt intense now feel predictable. Emotional exchanges that once carried weight now seem structured. You begin to see through them instead of experiencing them fully. That can make everything feel less engaging, less real. And that's where most people misunderstand what's happening. They think they're losing something valuable. In reality, they're gaining control. Because once emotion stops driving your reactions, your responses become intentional. You're not pulled into situations. You choose how to engage with them. That choice changes outcomes. You stop reacting based on impulse. You start responding based on understanding. And understanding creates precision. Now your actions are aligned with what actually matters, not what feels urgent in the moment. You're able to hold your position when others lose theirs. You're able to stay stable when others get pulled into emotional cycles. That stability is rare, and it creates an advantage most people don't realize exists. Because when you feel less, you're no longer controlled by what others feel. And when you're no longer controlled, you begin to control how situations unfold. Comment "I walk alone," and subscribe if you're not going back to how you used to see things. Number 6. The hidden power. How isolation sharpens your strategic mind. Noise trains you to react. Silence trains you to think. When contact drops, something uncomfortable appears first. There's no constant input to lean on, no quick feedback to validate direction, no immediate response to shape your next move. For a while, your thoughts feel scattered, almost louder than usual. That phase is not failure, it's recalibration. Because your mind has been conditioned to process through interruption. Without interruption, it has to reorganize itself. Stay in that space long enough, and a different kind of thinking begins to form. Not faster, sharper. You start connecting actions to outcomes with more accuracy. You replay situations without emotional distortion, noticing where decisions went wrong and where they could have been placed better. Patterns become clearer, because nothing is competing for your attention. This is where strategy begins. Niccolò Machiavelli valued distance for this exact reason. When you step outside constant interaction, you gain perspective that is impossible to access in the middle of movement. Proximity creates pressure. Distance creates vision. That vision changes how you approach everything. Instead of reacting to what's happening now, you begin mapping what happens next. You consider timing, sequence, and consequence before taking action. Your decisions stop being immediate responses and start becoming calculated placements. That difference is subtle, but powerful. Another shift happens beneath that. Without external validation, you're forced to rely on your own judgment. There's no quick confirmation that you're right. No immediate correction when you're wrong. That pressure builds internal authority. You begin trusting your analysis, not because it's perfect, but because it's the only reference you have. Over time, that trust becomes refined through repetition. You think, act, observe, adjust, and repeat. That loop sharpens you. Most never reach this stage because they escape the silence too early. They go back to noise before their thinking has a chance to evolve. They stay dependent on external input, which keeps their decisions shallow and reactive. Remaining in isolation removes that dependency. You begin to see situations in layers. Surface events no longer distract you. You look at underlying motives, timing gaps, and structural weaknesses. That perspective gives you an advantage without needing more effort, because you're not doing more, you're seeing more. And seeing more changes how you move. You act with less hesitation because your reasoning is clearer. You avoid unnecessary conflict because you can see where it leads. You choose moments carefully because you understand when outcomes are most favorable. That's strategic control. It doesn't come from speed. It comes from clarity built in silence. Over time, this creates a separation between you and everyone still operating inside constant noise. While they react to what appears, you operate based on what you already understand. That's the hidden power. Isolation doesn't reduce your capability. It removes interference. And once interference is gone, your thinking becomes precise enough to shape outcomes before they even unfold. Number 7. The Machiavelli path. Why walking alone is the price of control. No one tells you this part when you start seeing clearly. They talk about power. They don't talk about the cost. Because the moment you stop moving like everyone else, you stop being able to stay with everyone else. Not by choice, by consequence. When your thinking sharpens, when your reactions slow down, when your awareness starts cutting through surface-level behavior, something changes in how you relate to people. You're no longer participating the same way, and they feel it. Conversations lose rhythm. Your responses don't match expectations. Your silence creates tension where noise used to exist. You're still there, but you're not accessible in the same way anymore. That's where the path separates. Niccolò Machiavelli never framed power as something shared. Control requires independence from influence. And influence exists in every environment where you're emotionally, socially, or psychologically tied to others. To remove that influence, you remove the attachment. That's the price. Because once you stop needing alignment, approval, or constant connection, you also lose the comfort that comes with it. You stop explaining yourself. You stop adjusting to fit in. You stop reacting just to maintain connection. And that creates distance, whether you want it or not. This is where most people turn back. They feel the isolation, the lack of familiarity, the absence of easy connection. And they return to old patterns just to feel normal again. They trade control for comfort. But if you don't turn back, something else forms. You begin to operate without dependency. Your decisions are no longer shaped by how they'll be received. Your direction is no longer influenced by external pressure. Everything becomes internal. That's where real control begins. Not in dominating others, in no longer being shaped by them. This changes how you move completely. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to explain your thinking. You don't need to stay connected where there's no alignment. That freedom looks like distance from the outside, but internally, it feels like stability, because nothing is pulling you out of position anymore. No emotional hooks, no social pressure, no need to belong somewhere that requires you to reduce your awareness. That's the Machiavelli path. It's not about isolation for the sake of being alone. It's about removing everything that interferes with your clarity. And once that interference is gone, you stop adapting to the environment. The environment starts adjusting to you. Not everyone will understand what you just saw, but if something inside you shifted, even slightly, then you already know this isn't just information, it's recognition. Because once you start seeing things this way, You don't switch it off. You don't go back to how things felt before. You move differently, think differently, respond differently, without even trying. That's the real shift. And it only happens for a few. If this hit you, don't just leave it here. Drop a like so this reaches others who are starting to notice the same things but can't explain it yet. Comment "I walk alone" if you felt that shift in your perspective. Subscribe if you're ready to keep sharpening how you see and how you move. And share this with someone who's beginning to realize that seeing more comes with a cost, but also a level of control most people never reach.